Good morning. It is Tuesday, May the 26th, 2020, 9 a.m., and the Commissioners Court is now in session for the regular Commissioners Court meeting. If you would stand for the prayer and the pledge. You should be led by Commissioner Moser.
Pray with me, if you will, please. Dear Lord, thank you for this wonderful place that we live. Let us not forget this weekend as we remembered all those who committed the superb sacrifice of keeping our country free and maintaining our liberty. We appreciate all that they have done and all the Gold Star families that suffer from their loss. Thank you for the wonderful rain that we've had, dear Lord. Help guide this Commissioner's Court to do the public's will. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Reminder about the cell phones. This cell phone is on. If anybody wants to call in for Commissioners Court or for input today, the number is 830-792-6161. Okay, this is next part of the agenda is for public input. We've got a courtroom. Looks like we've got about 2, 4, 7, 8, 9 people here. I don't think we have anybody here in person, but if there's anybody who does want to offer any public comment, if you would call in the number I just gave you and limit it to 3 minutes, and we'll be happy to listen. Next is Commissioner's comments. We'll start with Commissioner 1.
A lot of rain, that's been nice. We had a good turnout under the circumstances, the threat of rain and the social distancing for yesterday's event for Memorial Day. So that's all I have to report.
Good.
How did I follow on with yesterday's event? I think there were probably about 50 people there. Marty and Jenna did a great job organizing. Harley did a great job of being MC for the thing. The speaker yesterday was in its own, it's recorded, so people can go to the county website through Commissioners and see that. The lady that spoke was Colonel from the Army Logistics. Did a fantastic job. What she reminded everybody of is that there have been 1 million people that have dedicated their life to our liberty and freedom, and she gave a few examples and just reminding that was just one out of 1 million in the 2 or 3 that she cited. The other thing she mentioned was, I thought was very interesting, is she said that there are threats to our liberty today, but that's for a different discussion later on. So she didn't go there, but she was just saying there's some other challenges. But anyway, I would encourage everybody to watch that video. It's she was extremely good. That's all I have.
Good. Okay. 3.
Couple things. Rains were nice. Eastern part of the county ended up anywhere from kind of 2 to 4 inches,
right.
Somewhere in that range, which was good. The wind was a little bit excessive, especially from Center Point to Comfort. A lot of damage. I spent most of yesterday trying to figure out how to live without electricity. We were out for 18 hours with 2 teenage boys and 2 teenage friends and no cell phones, so and no internet. So it was a bit of a challenge for them. They were going crazy. Interesting. I'll make a comment just because I was annoyed at Bandera Electric yesterday because they keep upgrading the system and it keeps getting worse. We are getting, and not just us, our personal family, but Eastern Kerr County is having more and more outages from Bandera Electric, and they keep upgrading everything they say, and it's getting worse from the standpoint of outage. I don't know if they're centralizing too much or what they're doing, but I plan to have some communication with their president in the next week or so because it seems to be going the other direction, getting better, not worse. And other thing, on baseball side, the Kerr Little League is planning to do a short season. They're going to start practices June 1. The game is around the 15th as per the governor's guidelines. Looks like there's quite a bit of interest. We're one of the few leagues that's going to try to do that in the Hill Country. We have a lot of people from other counties wanting to play here, and I believe the policy is going to end up being no. Kerr County, from kids from Center Point and Ingram will be welcome, but beyond that, no. That's about it.
That's June 15th, isn't it?
June 15th when the games start, and we're still sort of going through numbers, seeing who really wants to play. It's kind of restarting the season in a week. That takes about 2 months to get going, so it's kind of trying to figure out how it's all going to actually operate, but trying to do something for the kids.
Good.
All right. Again, the rain was nice for us out west. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more this week. Good news for the Hunt people. The recycling trailer will be going back out there this week. I believe Shane's planning on taking either this today or tomorrow, but it's back on schedule the last week of the month. I went out to Crider's. They have Catfish Fridays. A lot of people out there, and it's very good out on the open and fresh air and what have you. I understand they opened up the rodeo and dance this last Saturday. It's kind of tradition. It runs from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend, and it's over 90-year tradition. So all's well. Hopefully getting back to normal a little bit. That's it.
Good. I got a couple of things to report. One is on the census. I got a call from Billy Horton, and they're starting what they call the Update Leave program. And that's for the census will be looking for people who have P.O. mailboxes or rural route numbers that they can't actually get to the house. And they'll be taping the census forms to the gates, let everybody know that they're going to be out, just letting the public know that they're starting that. So if you live out in the rural part of the county, expect people to start putting stuff on your gates. And the other thing is, I had a lot of interest in the volunteer fire departments. I'm trying to schedule a workshop so we can sit down and talk about how ESDs work, and we can also talk about mandated and non-mandated functions for the county. So those are the two things that I have to report. So there will be nothing else. Let's move on to the agenda. Item 1.1. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the update, facility use, and other matters related to COVID-19. Doug Thomas.
Morning, Judge. Morning, Commissioners. Y'all have your report in front of you. Should be for week number 11, situation report number 11. I'm not going to go through the entire document. A lot of it is information that we've had in the past. So the information, most of the information you have there at the top is what has been put on there for today. Some of it is the numbers are a little bit incorrect. Some of that has changed, and DSHS hasn't updated some of their numbers. But the EOC activation level is currently at, the EOC is activated. We're still operating at an increased readiness level. Annex H, health and medical has been implemented, and we are still operating in phase 3 of the pandemic plan. The current situation over the weekend, Kerr County received 5 COVID-19 results, positive cases. 1 transmission was, that should say transmission was unknown, and 4 have been through close contact. I will tell you that I got a call this morning on my way over here that we had number 18 as of today. Again, that is also close contact transmission. Testing. The mobile testing that was conducted in Kerr County by the Texas Military Forces, there you have those numbers, a total of 295 tests. And on the next page is a breakdown from the last 2, the last 2 testings from May the 14th and May the 8th, as far as where those folks listed as their county residents.
Question, if you can go back to the recent close contact cases?
Yes, sir.
Are those related to one case or several?
Several.
My reason for the question is my understanding was that there was a travel related, but that person that had a lot of close contact. I wonder if these were all related.
Well, there was an outbreak at the Franklin Clinic, and that's where most of those came from.
Okay.
So there, again, you have the breakdown of the numbers for the last two Texas Military Forces testing that was done at the Hill Country Youth Event Center as well as the Kroc Center. Total tests conducted in Kerr County at this time, Peterson Regional does a total of 880. The Texas Military Forces has done 295. That COVID positive test there is incorrect. That should be 18. And I'm sure the infection rate is still pretty low, but it's not, that number is not correct as well. The rest of it down there, May the 14th and 15th, those are executive orders that the governor has issued lately. If you'll go back to the two more pages back, COVID-19 continues to spread according to the CDC and DSHS, and community spread is still active in Texas, and obviously it's active here in Kerr County. Total case numbers for Texas was 54,509. The USA and the world numbers are incorrect. I'm just going to stick with the Texas numbers for today. Texas total deaths has been 1,527. Total recovered in the states, 35,292. Testing also continues. They've got some new numbers out today, but the testing numbers there are correct. Total of 906,074 tests have been done in the state of Texas. A new number that they showed this morning on the DSHS website is they're doing a test for the antibodies, which means currently if you've been going to get tested at Peterson Regional or at if the Texas Military Forces tested you, they were testing to see if you were actually, if you had the virus at that time. The 80,000 tests that they've done for the antibodies are to test and see if you have had COVID-19 and have just gotten over it. The surrounding counties, Kendall, these numbers are correct for today. Kendall is 25, Medina has 67 with 2 fatalities, Llano 3, Blanco 8, Barnett 29, Kerr County is at 18, not 17, Gillespie County 5, Bandera 6, Kimball County 1. 228 counties in Texas have positive COVID-19 cases. The DSHS Region 8 numbers, active cases is 1,400, recovered. Again, in the 28 counties in Region 8 are 1,791 recovered and 94 deaths. Our operational priorities continue to be the same as they have been for the last 11 weeks. Public safety is number one, and we'll continue to work with Peterson Regional as well as Kerrville Fire, EMS, and their emergency management coordinator.
Are
questions on
samples
any-
still tested in San Antonio when swabs are taken or whatever here? Samples taken is go to San Antonio to be confirmed positive or negative?
I believe they're sending them to the San Antonio lab, the DSHS
Okay.
lab, yes, sir.
Okay.
Any questions for Doug?
Any testing in the county to see if people or have it but are therefore immune to it?
I don't know
In
about.
Kerr County?
I can't answer that,
Okay.
Commissioner. There's this,
That's the antibody test.
that's,
The antibody
the
test.
antibody test, I'm not sure that anybody here in Kerr County is doing it at this time.
Okay.
But this, they're finding out new things about this virus every day and stuff
Yeah.
changes on a daily basis.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Doug.
Yes, sir.
Next item on the agenda is 1.2. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the local state of disaster due to public health and economic emergency proclamation that I signed on March the 24th and extended until terminated on March the 30th. Any discussion on the
You
proclamation?
know what I think.
We do know what you think.
I do know, and I'm getting closer to thinking the same way. My question is, and I don't know who to ask it, it's the county judge or the county attorney, but when do we stop this? I mean, we could, the disease is gonna be around for certainly the foreseeable future. I don't see that we're doing anything different. I mean, I guess it's kind of like the boy that cried wolf. We're at the point now, to me, that no one cares that we're under a state of emergency because everyone's trying to live life accordingly and you try to take precautions. So it's kind of like, unless something changes to make it substantially worse than we know it already is, And that doesn't mean just more cases. It just means something drastic changes I can't even comprehend as to what is the plan for ending it, I guess is my question. And if we can't come to a answer to that, I'm in favor of getting rid of it.
Well, let me speak to that, because I don't know of any official plan to end it. But what I do know is that next week, we open this courthouse back up for in-person hearings and jury trials. And that is going to be a momentous transition. And so our jail population has been locked down for the last 2-3 months, I guess. And we have no positive cases there. We're going to start taking those inmates out of their cells where they're safe right now and exposing them to the public on a limited basis. I'd like to at least take a look to see how we roll that out before we revisit it. I understand where everybody's coming from, but the courthouse has got a big step to make. And I'd like to get that behind us. Let's see how we're doing. And I'd like, stay in touch with the sheriff to see how our jail's doing. We've done great so far. We just need to make sure we keep it that way.
I guess the question would be, courthouse opening up, the jail doing what it needs to do, are they doing anything different because of the emergency declaration? I mean, the sheriff's gonna do what he's gonna do, whether it's emergency declaration or not. Courthouse, we've already got the policy of what's gonna be taking place in the courthouse. So it doesn't matter whether we have emergency declaration or not, correct?
I don't know.
Yeah.
The main thing I see is, as far as it being an asset, a tool in our tool chest, is if we need to have a quick meeting for something broke, that we need to have a quick meeting.
Takes us 2 hours to have a meeting.
Right.
We can do that,
3.
whether, 3 hours, 3 hours, whether we have a declaration. The only thing I can mention is, I don't think we need it, is the revenue limit. We can not have to adhere to the 3.5% if we're in a state of emergency declaration. Of course, we can always revert back to emergency declaration if we think
Right.
we need it. So I don't see any real benefit in having the emergency declaration. I think it probably causes people perhaps some concern that they don't need to have a concern over. So
I guess my thought is that if the court doesn't renew it, there's nothing to prevent the judge from re-implementing it for 7 days if something happens.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's going to do anything differently, whether this remains in place or not. Everyone by this point, and this is what I tried to say at the last meeting, there's probably not a soul left on the planet that doesn't understand what the process is. This doesn't change anything for anybody's behavior or anything else. It would just be, and I can't think, and I've thought about it, any kind of scenario by which we'd have some emergency crisis meeting that we haven't already seen. I think Dub mentioned that they're still learning. That's the people that are analyzing things under a microscope. But as far as day-to-day process and how we behave and what we do, we're not learning anything new about that.
Yep.
in
Agree.
perception is everything. And people are beginning to get concerned about freedom over fear, okay? And I think that's just a simple term. And some people probably look at a emergency declaration, even though it's really not, it looks like a controlling mechanism when that's not the case at all. So
No.
it's just a perception thing, so, which would be a negative perception.
Well, it has been used, not in this county that I'm aware of,
Right.
but in other locales, state and nationwide, as a controlling mechanism.
Right,
Right.
but not in this case.
No.
Not here.
Here, it wasn't used at all.
That's the reason I said
Never used it.
perception. People are probably,
We
some
had a
people are
meeting.
probably looking at it as
We had one
perception.
meeting,
Right.
3-hour meeting, 3-hour notice
We had a
meeting.
meeting, but
Yeah.
by that time, by the time this would have gone into effect, the governor issued his executive order. So it's really never been put in place.
Sheriff?
The only thing I'd like to say about it is I totally agree that it's time to end it. I'll give you an example. Sunday a week ago, I went to church and I think about 120 people in there, and we were socially distanced. I think there was probably 3 or 4 that did not have masks on. This Sunday I went to church and I counted 120 people in there, and I counted 4 that had masks on. People are tired of it. The only concern I have, and you're right, we're going to do in the jail and take the precautions that we have to take, because I'm trying like man, to keep it out of that jail. But the only concern that I have not heard an answer to is, if you do not have it in effect, is there any way that it could affect us getting reimbursed for some of the costs that we could have? Because if we do, I've got probably close to $8,000-$10,000 in costs right now, and that's without having it in the jail. They're going up constantly on trying to get the PPE stuff and everything, especially for when we open, and the manpower. But if we do get it in the jail, I know one of the costs, one of the grants out of ACOG will help cover some of those medical costs, but I don't know how it's tied into if the county has declared the disaster or not, because if you don't, I just don't know whether we can get reimbursed. And if that were answered, that we would get reimbursed either way, I'd be on y'all's bandwagon too to get rid of it, because, you know, from looking at the river crossings, looking at people in the stores and churches, we're done. Everybody is, except there are some cases, nursing homes, jails, hospitals, where we still have to take the precautions. But the general public needs to get back. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, I agree with the sheriff on the possibility of it affecting reimbursements. Also, one thing that Kerr County residents can be assured, we don't operate, the 5 of us don't operate like Bear County or some of the others. We're not going to be overreaching just because we have that in our back pocket. And it's just, there it is. If we need it, fine. But, you know, situations like the sheriff brought up, I think it's important. But we're all pretty level-headed. We haven't implemented anything. In fact, we've probably been the calming force here in the county, I would think. So that's my 2 cents.
Judge or county attorney, how do we determine if we need to keep the declaration to get the reimbursement both from the state and federal?
I don't know the answer to that. I can ask people who might know the answer and get back to you. I'm not sure, but that's been my concern every time I'll have this conversation, is whether or not the county could be reimbursed if the declaration is terminated.
That's going to involve federal and state, so we've got to find out from both. We all get emails all the time about this stuff and updates and applying for grants and so on. How much of that is junk mail? How much? If I pay attention to it when it comes from the state comptroller, if it comes from the attorney general or somebody that I know, but most of them aren't. So I'm thinking that the auditor's office and the county attorney's office can find out for us. Because if something has been officially posted, and I haven't searched either, or through whether it's ACOG or whether it's TAC that has the information, or the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, or whoever, and determined that, and it's a reasonable question to find out what we will or won't be reimbursed for. So
It is a reasonable question.
Yeah.
And I think for the public knowledge, I don't see it making much of a difference. I think that you're looking at the 5 of us sitting here going like, it hadn't made any difference so far. There may be some regulations or requirements that we need to pay attention to. In terms of what we've done as a court, what I've done as a county judge, it's been totally hands-off. Everything has been voluntary, which is the way we wanted it, and it's worked well. At this point, I don't see where it's going to make a difference if we terminate it today or don't. There's a potential downside if we terminate it today. I would feel more comfortable if we got an answer from our county attorney, so that when we terminate it, we know there's not going to be any unforeseen legal fallout from it. But I think the public needs to know that as far as we're concerned, we're virtually out of the state of disaster.
and in that event,
The health
time-
disaster, not the economic disaster.
No, time would be important, because the people that went after the SBA money, that money ran out before a bunch of them got there. So in that instance, as far as if there's money to be had,
Right,
short of that, I don't see any reason to have it.
right. Well, that's the thing, we don't want to cost the county any money.
Exactly.
Miss out on something that, just because we fired from the hip. Let's find out those answers. And
Judge, you may think about recalling this item at 11, because we're going to have an Austin attorney who's very well versed in county law, and he may have some insight as to how it works, even though that's not like being asked to be here today.
And I don't know if our county attorney let us talk about that in executive session, but,
Well, we can do an open session. We can talk.
yeah, we're going to open.
We can do an open session with him
Yeah.
and just recall this item and just say, do you have any insight?
But I think one of the important takeaways for the public today is that this court is not divided about where we are with regard to this state of health disaster. I think we all agree that we're yet to see the real brunt of the economic disaster that's coming. But in terms of whether or not we stay under this order, I'd leave it alone until we have a more definitive answer, but it's not going to change anything.
I don't have a problem with that, and that's why I wanted the discussion. I mean, if we can end it, let's end it, but we
And
need to make sure.
asking Chuck Kimbrough is a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, so no action on that today. Item 1.3, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the resolution to approve the HAVA, H-A-V-A, which is Help America Vote Act grant. Ms. Shelton.
Yes, what you have before you is the resolution that we will need in order to apply for the grant. It's about a $68,000 grant, and it's to help with all of the PPE that we're gonna need for the election coming up. We have been working with Bob Reeves and Nadine, the election clerk, in order to get the budget set for this. Once we apply for this, it will open us up for another grant of about $40,000 that will not require a match, and then it'll open us up for an even grant after that of about $80,000 that will require a 20% match. On the one that's before you, there will be a 20% match on that, and we will be paying for that out of Fund 12, which is for the elections.
Any further discussion?
So what's the downside of not doing this?
We won't receive any of the money.
Okay? And it's in the budget, the 20%.
Fund
It's
12.
gonna be in the election. They've agreed to use a different fund, not the general fund. This is, the Fund 12 is for elections only, and so we get it from other places.
So it's in the total budget.
It's not in the budget at this time. We're asking for the grant. We know what the budget, we're looking at it, but the budget hasn't been passed yet because we haven't received the grant.
It's a 20% match.
Yeah.
So what is going to be the estimated cost? Mr. Reeves, do you have that answer, or is this the estimated cost?
We're still working on the total amount. This is what the state has allocated us. The majority of it will be spent on, we hate this word, mandates, unfunded mandates. These will be funded for personal protection equipment for the federal election, i.e. November. But the grants have become available at this time. We will match the grant through our election services, Fund 12, as she's talking about. This is money that is paid to my office outside of the general fund tax dollars for conducting these elections. Now, would point out in the resolution, I think it's the next to the last paragraph, that you can't offset an existing budget with this grant money. This is for expenses that will come up due to the COVID. And it's a very fluid situation right now, Commissioner, as far as we don't know, it's pending and probably going to the Supreme Court if we'll have to make ballots by mail available to every person that requests one or not.
Which increases the expense immensely.
Not only the expense of the printing of the cost, we're already seeing an increase with those that are qualified to receive ballots by mail, over 65, going to be out of the county, various things. but you're looking at postage, printing, and probably additional personnel to process an unknown number of votes in November.
So
we
funding,
just have
bottom
a-
line, you've got the funds for the 20%.
We have the 20% funds available. Apologize, I wasn't more prepared. I didn't know this was going to be on the agenda today. We have the funds available through our administration of elections, the fees that we receive from other entities that we hold elections for, other services that we do.
So bottom line, you have the money.
Bottom line, we have the money available through certain funds, yes, sir. Outside of what's, I believe it's line 402 or item fund 402 is our general one that's paid for with tax dollars. This is not coming out of that, it's coming from other funds, and we do have the money, bottom line, Commissioner.
Okay.
And this is for the election in November, not the one for the primary this summer.
We cannot use it because it's a local and state election. This is the federal money, i.e. the Senate presidential.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the resolution to apply for the HAVA grant. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thanks, Bob.
And I'm going to start this, Commissioner. I've signed the resolution, and we'll start passing it around to everybody. Next item on the agenda is 1.4. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve and authorize the county judge to sign the request form for unclaimed capital credits received from electric cooperatives pursuant to Section 74.602 of the Texas Property Code, distributed by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. James Robles.
Good morning. This is something we've done for the last many years. We've used these funds to pay our portion of the Kerr Economic Development Corporation. It goes into a special revenue fund 49. And we just need to pass the resolution so that we can apply for those reimbursements.
Make a motion, we approve the resolution and authorize the county judge to sign.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Blue to approve after applying for the electric cooperative capital credit funds. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Next item on the agenda is 1.5. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the renewal of the TAC, Texas Association of Counties, HEBP, Health and Employee Benefits Pool Medical and Dental Plan for FY 2021 for employees and retirees. Ms. Doss.
Good morning. Up for your consideration is the renewal. There's very good news this year. Our claims have been down, so the medical portion there is a 2% decrease. And the dental, there's a slight increase of about 5%. But total dollars that we're speaking of, if we use the current selection rates of people's, what they're claiming, is about $66,868. If we don't change anything. If the employee portion remains the same and the savings go to the county, we're saving just under $67,000.
This is good news.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the renewal.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the renewal of the TAC HEBP medical and dental plans for FY 2021. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment on that. I think this is one of the topics that we need to look at next year from the standpoint of the benefit package. I visited with the auditor a little bit about this, and it was also to the longevity we're looking at. After we get the salary survey, which we've deferred until next year, I think we need to look at our whole benefit package, longevity policy, everything all at once. And this is when, some of the costs that employees pay versus salaries, things of that nature. So I just brought it up as something we need to look at, I think, again next year a lot closer.
Okay, very good. Next item on the agenda is 1.6. Consider.
9:30.
Let's just finish 1.6.
Okay.
Let's consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the contract with Castle Lake Volunteer Fire Department. This is one that went out first of the year. We're just now getting it back. We just need to approve it.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the contract with Castle Lake. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 1.7, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding speed bumps on River Road in Center Point.
Yes, I'm Rick Stedham. I live at 131 CP River Road. I'd like to formally ask that we add some speed bumps along River Road between Old Days and River Crossing Road. I've lived there 15 years now. I made formal complaints before to the court and to the Sheriff's Department. 10 years ago, the Sheriff's Department, y'all added some signage on the road surface itself. It decreased the speed by maybe 10%. Since then, we've added a lot more. Y'all renovated the park. We don't have a reasonable way for kids from our neighborhood or the neighborhood across behind the mini mart, approximately 200 houses, to get to the park. The only way they can walk is to cross 27 and get down to River Road, walk River Road. We have 60 to 80 mile an hour traffic on the road. It's crazy how fast the people go on it. It's the cutoff that everybody uses to go from 173 to 27 trucks and cars to cut off to go to San Antonio. That adds traffic. We'd like to use the speed bumps or signage or something to kind of reduce those and maybe not just slow them down, but maybe discourage them from using that road, cut off at Sutherland maybe, and run to the highway for the trucks that normally come through our street. Like I said, y'all spend a lot of money on the parking and the kids don't have a good way to get there. Bicycle path runs through there for every race y'all do that's done in the county, and then the Tuesday bicyclists go through the same route trying to get around the highway traffic. We have 6 VRBOs that have been added since the signage was put on the road that are full for the whole year now. There's kids in every one of those. And there's 3 additional VRBOs going to be added in the next 6 months. Personally, I have 20 kids every weekend at my place that have to cross the road and run the road. It's just, we worry about it all the time. What I would like to see is we can stick with the signage that's there, but then add an additional speed bump. I'd like to see one at kind of right by my house, actually. But anyway, the sign is at Harley Street. There's a stop sign there, and then it's a little over a quarter of a mile before you get to Crossing Street. And there's no control between those two. I'd like to see 3 controls. There's an absence. Originally it looked like there was a plan for streets along there every block, and it skips 4 blocks. We could use 4 along there. I think it might do what I'm asking you to do. If we look at this compared to the traffic, the speed, and the number of people compared to Riverview Boulevard, that y'all spent a lot of money on also, I would think that we would be at least 4 or 5 times the traffic on kids, and traffic is what that road is.
One thing, Rick and Carl Bueller and Charlie and I have talked about this over the last month or so, I think. Traffic has increased on Center Point River Road for a lot of reasons. The RV park down by Briggs Crossing is really booming, okay?
It is.
A lot of stuff there. People are using the Lions Park in Center Point a lot more. I think more development near your home there on the river. Some vacation rental properties there that are very nice. So I don't know, I'd like to have Charlie, if he would, talk about speed bumps. I think that's been the issue. Was that the right answer? The constable has been made aware. I think he's been out there, but probably not to the extent that it's really slowing traffic down.
No.
And Rick sees that more than anybody, but Charlie, why don't you talk about speed bumps? If you will.
We have some in the county that were set about 2 years ago. It was a unique situation where we had a business that owned both parts of both sides of the road, and I believe probably owned the road at one time, or still does. I'm not sure about that, but was operating a business. The and having to cross the road with forklifts and things like that on a daily basis. They're running a landscape business there, and their buildings and structures were right adjacent to the edge of the road. There wasn't a ditch area, there wasn't a lot of shoulder. Well, there's virtually no shoulder. So you maybe have a forklift that's coming out of one building, crossing the road, going to the other. So there was some site visibility issues that we were concerned about, that we felt like the speed bumps would address that. There was also an intersection with some site visibility issues. So it was a special circumstance for those speed bumps, and I believe that the court made note of that. You can go back and review the minutes, but they wanted to be careful that we weren't setting some kind of a precedent in the future for speed bumps to just go up.
What does the state say about speed bumps for speed control? Does it address that at all?
I haven't seen the state address it as much as I've seen municipalities, cities, maybe have a section in their traffic control where they talk about the use of speed bumps for speed control.
I can answer that.
Okay.
I have a folder here that addresses all kinds of traffic issues. Most of the questions come up because of Center Point River Road. And one of the opinions that I have in my little arsenal here relates to speed bumps, because this has been asked before related to this particular road during, it was several years ago, it may have just been a handful of years ago, but the Attorney General's opinion about placing speed bumps on the county road is that a county may install a speed bump on a county road if it has received permission to do so from the Texas Department of Transportation, because that device, the manual that put out by the Department of Transportation does not contain standards or guidelines regarding the speed bumps, so the county would need to get permission to do that.
So the county
Would need to get permission from
permission.
TxDOT to do that.
Okay.
I forgot about that.
Okay.
There's something I want to mention, and that is that we now have that mobile sign that tells people the rate of speed at which they're traveling, or tells them children are playing, or however we want, whatever message we want to put on it. So we might want in the interim to use that sign there and have a message on it saying children are in play, slow down.
I think everybody's going 60 miles an hour on the road, realize it's a 30-mile-an-hour road next to you.
Well, there is you can also gauge their speed, tell them how fast, but the message about children tends to get people's attention. A sign that flashes that, as opposed to a side of the road sign. So you're not going to get your speed bumps today, you're not going to get them tomorrow. We can get that thing out there within 24 hours.
It would be handy.
And I'll defer to Charlie and Kelly a lot of this. I know there's been a feeling of not using speed bumps overall in the county. And I'd be interested if Charlie and or Kelly can come up with other alternatives on that road. It's a really dangerous road. A lot of traffic, additional stop signs, possibly. I don't know. I mean, I agree that there's a problem, and if speed bumps is the best answer, maybe that's it. But I like to make sure that it's the best thing to try to control the speed. Another thing, and I'm not familiar with the road, but as you're coming from the river crossing, Brinks crossing, the first road that you hit, and I can't remember the name of it, was right by
Dave's place.
Well, it used to be Dave's place,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
is there a way to encourage the traffic, the people that use that road, to use that as an access, maybe upgrade that road as the access to 27, so that people get off of River Road quicker?
Sutherland works best for that.
Yeah, well, I know, but Sutherland's I agree, but Sutherland's also, just the way it runs, it's not an easy cutoff. I mean, I'm trying to figure out if you can get people to get over to 27 sooner, and Sutherland would be great, but Sutherland's a long road. I mean, when you get into Center Point, it's just a real quick little one-block jog. If there's a way to get some of the traffic to turn off River Road sooner, something along that lines.
Well, I think people at the RV park and Frank's Crossing know about Sutherland Road. It's a lot better to go that way. But a lot, and I think Rick would speak to this, I think probably some people on Center Point River Road going down toward Lions Park are going to the post office. So that's their shortest route, is go down Center Point River Road crossing the river at Lions Park in Center Point, and then come into to whatever they're going to in Center Point, whether it's the post office or whatever. Okay, but there's more traffic in there. So I think that your suggestion is good. I'll let Charlie and Kelly see if they can't work with Rick and Carl Jeter and see if there's some other options that we might look at. Because I think and I agree with you, Commissioners, I think we haven't had any speed bumps for speed control in the county. So I think if we do this, okay, it may be the right thing to do, but I think we have to recognize there will be a lot of requests for the same type of thing throughout the county. So,
And it's a road maintenance. I understand from Kelly that the speed bumps are difficult when they have to go or doing any kind of road maintenance.
right.
Mr. Odom was completely against it. He said, last time I complained and brought this to everybody's attention, and took it to his attention, he said there would never be a speed bump in Kerr County.
Okay.
Well, this road is no longer here.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
But the stop sign idea, if you have to stop every each block, I guess we need to talk to Kelly about the process for doing that.
Still be a quarter mile and unregulated.
But at the short term, that mobile signage would work. And that's one
Yeah,
reason
in
we
the
got
short
it.
term, if we
And
put that sign out there, it'll help.
without a doubt.
And one thing I'd add is the population density where Rick is talking about is very high right there. I mean, it's a highly populated residential area that is going to get even more attention now with the sewer system, which is there. So it's going to get worse, okay, rather than better.
So if I can summarize what I'm hearing, the direction would be to immediately get some kind of the sign that we have that it tells you how fast you're going and it tells you, hey, this is what the speed limit really is, so slow down. That's something we can get out there pretty quickly. It's a trailer mounted. And then it sounds like what we need to do is to quantify through some traffic counts what's actually happening and look at the traffic patterns. Now's a good time because the sewer project in that area is completed. So we shouldn't have that kind of interference or something skewing the data. My question would be, is it okay to start gathering that data now? Is now a good time during the summer? I would expect, okay. Well, we'll do that then. We'll get the traffic counters out there over the next few weeks and come back.
That sign will do that too.
And if we
Yes, it will.
If we could center between the Harvest stop sign and the crossing road, would be the peak of the speed.
The third would be for me to coordinate with Mr. Stepp.
Okay, and then come back to the court.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The 1st of July.
That might be about right. That might be about right.
It's good to have a deadline.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 1.8. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to form a committee to make recommendations for the operation of the 5-County Regional Public Defender's Office. I put that on the agenda, but I forgot to talk to anybody. That's my bad. What I'm thinking about, and let's just get the input from the court. I know Commissioner Lance mentioned our county attorney serving on this committee. I've also thought about asking Harold Danford, who is a private practice attorney here in town, who's expressed interest in the Public Defender's Office and I think is actively supportive of it. Dawn Lands, our district clerk, who I'd like to ask because she deals with the indigent defense as it is right now. And I'm thinking maybe trying to engage Steve Harpold, the new district attorney for the 198th. He's used to be my neighbor and is a very thoughtful and careful thinker. And I think would be very helpful on this. Put together a 5-person committee. I'd also probably like to get a judge, one of our district judges probably. I might consider asking Judge Williams, who just retired.
Good.
Bring him back into the fold. And he's very active in all these 5 counties. As a visiting judge, he'll be serving in all these places, so there'll be a lot of overlap.
Lots of good experience.
So that's kind of what my thoughts are. I'll talk to them and invite them to see if they accept. And if they do, then we'll come back and recommend you get your ratification of it.
I think it'd be good to have a member of the court, maybe Commissioner Harris.
Aren't you on there?
I want to make sure to get your name first.
Payback.
No, I just think, I've talked to the judge about this, and I think it's we just in general, and I think it would be really helpful to have Kerr County, get information back to us so we can make a better decision, because I'm still unknown. And then I think that after that, there's another big step as to how the 5 counties work together. But I think it's a great idea. I think that it would help me a lot to get input from them with a report of some sort to explain how they think it's going to work, because they and the people you mentioned all are very involved and vested in the process, and I think it would be very good.
Well, and to clarify, so the public understands what we're trying to do, is this committee would be what I call the internal committee for Kerr County, for us to help figure out how this public defender's office works best for us. And then there'll be, when we get together with the 5 counties, there'll be an external committee from all 5 counties.
So we would basically have a representative from that group that would be part of the larger.
They would be formulating the recommendations to that group.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Since you haven't
Talk to anybody.
I would, I don't need a motion, but I'll make a motion that we, we have to authorize the county judge to appoint the committee of people he seems appropriate representing the interest groups that he represented today.
I'll second that.
Is that broad enough today?
Sure. Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Ballou, for the county judge to appoint this committee we've just talked about. The public now knows who we're trying to get involved, and they'll probably learn about their invitation before I even get a call into them. But,
they're watching now.
any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous 5-0.
Phone hadn't rang, so.
Next item on the agenda is 1.9, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on the request from the State Office of Administrative Hearings, or what we call SOA, to continue using the Commissioner's Courtroom once a month for their ALR, which is Administrative License Revocation Hearings. They've contacted us. They've been doing it for forever. Now that we're coming out of this coronavirus crisis, they'd like to be able to start scheduling their hearings again after we open the courthouse up for in-person hearings.
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Ballou, seconded by Commissioner Harris, to approve the request from SOA to continue using Commissioner's Courtroom once a month for their ALR hearings. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous 5-0. Okay, the next item on the agendas are all timed items at 10 o'clock, so we will stand in recess until 10 o'clock. Back into session. We have several timed items at 10 o'clock. The first one is 1.10, public hearing for a revision of plat for Elm Pass Ranch Number 2, tracks 126 and 127. This is a public meeting. I call that public meeting to order. Is anybody who would like to make any presentations or speak on that topic? There being none, then I will adjourn the public meeting. Let's move on to item number 1.11. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to approve a revision of plat for Elm Pass Ranch Number 2, tracks 126 and 127. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. This proposal revises the property line between tract 126 and 127. Tract 126R will be 14.29 acres and tract 127R will be 8.62 acres. The property access and road frontage will not change. County engineer requests the court approve the revision of plat for Elm Pass Ranch Number 2, tracks 126 through 127, volume 3, page 100. It's precinct 2, and we just held the public hearing. Nobody spoke.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Baloo to approve the revision of plat for Elm Pass Ranch Road Number 2, tracks 126, 127. Discussion? Then those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.12, public hearing for a revision of plat for Ingram Hills subdivision, tract 22A. I call the public meeting to order. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of the Ingram Hills subdivision? Okay, I will adjourn the public meeting and we'll go on to 1.13. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to approve a revision of plat of Ingram Hills subdivision, tract 22A. Charlie Hastings.
This proposal is in Ingram's ETJ, and it revises Ingram Hills subdivision, tract 22A, into 3 lots. It's currently 4.97 acres. Edward Sanders previously divided and conveyed portions of the tract without revising the plat. This plat revision will make the subdivision official. Lot 22RA will be 1 acre, will front Ingram Hills Road with a little over 128 feet of frontage. Lot 22RR will be 1 acre, will front Ingram Hills Road with 146 feet of frontage, almost 150, which is the minimum. Lot 22RE will front Ingram Hills Road with 63 feet of frontage and over 300 feet of frontage on Coon Road. So it's got double frontage, and that one's 2.97 acres. The county engineer requests the court adopt this revision of plat for Ingram Hills subdivision, tract 22A, volume 5, page 152, precinct 4.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Baloo to approve the revision of plat for Ingram Hills subdivision. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0 unanimous. Okay, at this time, the court's going to go back to item 1.2 that we discussed earlier. We have our outside counsel with us today, Mr. Chuck Kimbrough. I'm going to recall 1.2, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the local state of disaster due to public health and economic emergency proclamation that I signed on March 24th and extended until terminated by order of the Kerr County Commissioners Court on March 30, 2020. Mr. Kimbrough.
May it please the court.
We debated and discussed this morning whether or not there's any advantage or disadvantage to terminating that order. It's not changing much of anything here in the county right now, but we wanted to at least ask you, is there any reason that we should not terminate it?
Discretion is the call, but the largest or the most important reason would be if the county is currently or participating or desiring to participate in a federal or state grant program based on the pandemic. It would be my opinion that an active disaster declaration would be a sort of an entry position for eligibility or qualification for grant funds.
Kind of what we thought.
Yep, exactly what we thought, but now we got to confirm. So really,
So that's a requirement?
It's my opinion, yes, sir. I haven't looked at it.
We don't know for sure if it's a requirement.
It's
You're just
my-
saying better to be safe than sorry.
Yes, sir. That's the reason for one of the reasons for the governor's executive order disaster declarations is to make the federal money
Sure.
available.
Sure.
It would make plenty of sense to keep it going for that reason if you're interested in participating in the programs for the money.
So a statewide won't cover county, each county has to do it individually?
Typically, yes, sir. That's the way it has been in my experience with a natural disaster such as a hurricane or a flood.
Is there I guess this, yeah, anyways, or you just answered that. Basically, the process is local, then the state, then the Fed. It has to start at the local level to get the declaration.
Yes, sir. The state's money is augmented substantially by the federal money. And, the federal statutes are many, but it makes sense in my judgment to keep it going for that reason. It can certainly be an abbreviated local order with the governor's active declaration attached as an exhibit, for instance.
And to help the public understand exactly what we're involved in, Ms. Shelton, could you address this as to, are we involved in these very programs that he's mentioning here?
We are,
Very actively.
or will be, yes.
We did some today and we're doing more.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the approval agenda. 2.1, pay the bills. Ms. Shelton.
Yes. Invoices for today's approval, Kerr County, $350,513.62. The airport, $23,368.01. Adult probation, $1,075.82. Juvenile probation, $34,868.64. The district clerk fees, $10,211.76. The 216th DA forfeiture fund, $1,119.96. The 198th DA forfeiture fund, $131.46.
Move we pay the bills as presented by the auditor.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Ballou to approve paying the bills as presented. Any further debate? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 2.2, budget amendments.
There are not any.
2.3, late bills.
There are not any.
Okay. Auditor's report, 2.4.
Yes, on looking at our revenues for the month of April, you each received your grant or graphs in front of you. We've collected just above 80% of the revenues for the general fund. Fire protection, we're at about 93%. Road and bridge is about 65%. Indigent services is about 93%. And debt service is a little bit over 80%. So that's on the revenues that have been collected. The actual numbers are there in front of you. Looking kind of at the sales tax, because right now, you know, with the economy, that's kind of what we're watching closely right now. So you'll see for the month of April, we collected $312,284, which is right in line with what we had collected in prior years. And then for the month of May, because we do already have that money, even though that's kind of outside the report, we collected $383,116. Now, keep in mind, even though we collected this money in May, this is for the March sales taxes that were collected. So we're a little bit, couple of months before it gets to us.
So we should expect a dip next month.
I'm expecting it, yes.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah.
As far as our expenditures, we've expended about 50% of our budget so far in the general fund. In the fire protection, we've expended closer to about 62%. Road and bridge, we've expended about 40%. Indigent services, we're somewhere around 63%. And then debt services is around 82%. And again, this is just kind of keep up to date on where we are right now.
And we have 4 months to go in the fiscal year.
Yes, starting with June.
These numbers on expenditures are through what time?
April the 30th.
Okay, so that's 7 months of.
Okay.
Yes. So we should be about 58% collected on the revenues and about 58% expended on the expenditures in average. Looking at it, comparing it to prior years, we're still pretty much in line in the general fund with where we were last year during this time on both collect revenues and expenditures. Any other questions?
But we're running, on the expenditures, we're running a little bit behind. At least in the general fund, it looks like, I mean, if we should be at 58%, it looks like we're at about 52%.
52%. And to your question, we just haven't expended it at this time. So there are some bills that just come due once a year, and so there may be more of those that are yet to come in the last 4 months of the year. In comparing this to where we were last year, we were somewhere around 51% in our expenditures at this time.
So we're in line.
Yes.
So recognizing that sales tax are probably going to decrease, do you take your crystal ball and look forward and try to determine options on what we might do to decrease expenditures?
If we will need to, yes. We're running.
Don't you think it's a good idea?
It's always a good idea to be looking at it in
Right.
front of it. Yes.
So
The budget is set once a year, so that's what makes it hard. We can certainly ask all of the department heads, to look at your expenditures and not spend anything that you don't have to spend. There are certainly things that emergencies we can do.
what percentage, and I forgot what it is, of our revenue comes from sales tax?
Sales tax percentages, it's about 17% of our budget.
17%.
The majority of our budget, 69%, is from property taxes.
Right. Okay, so that's not going to be impacted by anything we know with COVID-19. Sales tax will be, so
We still have about $2.4 million to collect with sales taxes.
So it's probably a good idea, though, assuming sales tax decreases by some reasonable percentage. What would that be? I'm not asking for the answer now, but maybe next few weeks or so, take a look at that and see
Certainly.
what we might do and what departments might do to defer some expenses associated, consistent with that.
And that's why I'm looking at what's going to come out this next month in sales tax is going to be so important.
Right.
We've kind of looked back historically just at some of the times when sales taxes have decreased. The Zika virus had a little bit of effect on our sales taxes. I believe it was somewhere around 5% of a decrease. I think it's called the Great Recession. It took 3 years for the sales tax to trickle, to decrease in Kerr County, which was kind of interesting after the fact. But they decreased by about 9%.
But that was a slow.
The first year during it, there was like a 0.9% decrease. The next year, I want to say it was somewhere around a 4% decrease. And then the next year, it was a 9% decrease. And I may be off on those because I haven't looked at it, but somewhere around in there.
Refresh my recollection, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What do you call the Great Recession?
It was in the year somewhere around 2008, 9, and 10 in that time period. So when there's unexpected time periods right now, which this is, how do you predict anything at this point?
You can get information from other locales too. I think the cities, the other counties that are, larger, they probably are making some estimate of what their decrease in sales tax are going to be. I don't know if the city has done that or not. Perhaps the city has, I don't know.
I don't know either. Yes, and that's why we're looking at historically what has happened in Kerr County.
But I'm saying not historical, I'm saying their projection right now, okay?
Okay.
What are other organizations predicting as far as decrease in sales tax revenue?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shelton. 2.5, monthly reports.
April 2020 standard monthly report from Constable Precinct 4, Gene Huffaker. Fines, judgments, and jury fees collected for JP1, Missy French, JP4, Bill Ragsdale. Animal Service Monthly Activity Report, Director Reagan Gibbons. And 4 Indigent Services Monthly Report, Director of HR and Indigent Services, Jennifer Doss. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris and seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Court orders.
Yes, we have our court orders from the Monday, May 18th meeting for 38087 through 38094. They all look to be in order. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Latz, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the court orders as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Let's move on to the information agenda. Item 3.1, status reports from department heads. Have any department heads that want to make a status report? 3.2, status reports from elected officials. Any elected officials want to make a report? Item 3.3, status reports from liaison commissioners.
I'll tell you that maintenance is steady cleaning up limbs and stuff from the courtyard and other places, and checking out the ag barn and ball fields and everything else. On top of that, they've been diligently making shields for the different departments, and everything. About the time they think they're through, they get a few more requests. So they're busy with that.
Good.
The IT guys have been very busy with all the power outages, so Ben here can tell you about it. He can talk.
They
don't know that.
Economic development, Gil Salinas has sort of increased his scope to try and help as best he can the businesses in the community with the COVID-19, and really doing a good job communicating to all those and communicating information from the state to those entities. So, and I don't think there's anything new on any of the potential new businesses that we can discuss right now. So,
Judge, I will bring up on our next Commissioners Court meeting, I anticipate that we'll have the agreement from the Hooker Youth Event Center from the company that wants to do the naming rights issue. We have that, we're going through it. So probably on the agenda. And animal control, they're getting closer back to normal operations, but they still are limiting surrenders, and there's some other operational changes that they may completely change as a result of this. They'll be bringing that probably to the court in the next meeting.
Good. Okay, with that, I believe we've got two items on the executive session agenda. One of them is a timed item at 11 o'clock. Why don't we take about a 5-minute break and come back at 10:30, 10:31 or 2, something like that. And we can start on executive session item 4.1A, which is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding employee evaluations. So we'll be in recess for 5 minutes. At this time, it is 10:35, and the court was going to go into executive session pursuant to section 551.071, consultation with attorney. We're going to do subparagraph A, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding employee evaluations. And that will be an executive session at this time. Okay, we're back in open session. We have no further business. Court is adjourned. That's all we got to say.